the librarians an immediate solution that they can provide, and so and Amy was saying that it's nice to be able to provide these solutions as opposed to saying like, I don't really have a solution for you. You're going to have to bear with it. So our next one was bring the outdoors in or create some outdoor areas, and we thought that that was very Tucson centric. So we like the ideas of bringing trees and things like that indoors, not only for the area, and the nice view, but also for the fact that trees can cut down on noise and things like that between different areas. And then outdoor areas, a lot of us were saying that, to go find quiet spaces, we go outside or we go to a patio somewhere to listen to birds and have a nice quiet time. And then focusing a little bit more on ambiance was kind of our third more specific idea. We wanted to set different areas in the library, and we were kind of talking about how it's sort of funny that to find quiet spaces, we don't necessarily have silence in today's society because everything is so noisy. So we were saying that sometimes we listen to music that doesn't have lyrics. So like whether it's Chopin or meditative music or whatever your choice might be, sometimes these sorts of tunes can set the how loud we're supposed to talk in certain areas or how quiet we're supposed to be. So we thought if we set different areas, different quiet areas, if we add things to it like music or not just only signage and communication, which are typically found in libraries already, but maybe even temperature too, because sometimes people respond to like warmer spaces to be quieter, or sometimes they respond to colder spaces to concentrate more.
5 seconds.
Creating the ambiance in different areas of the library. We know the libraries already have those areas, but maybe doing things to boost how you're supposed to behave in that certain area. So those were our top ideas.
Nice work, catching on.
Excellent.
Who's next? The lab. All right.
Yeah.
You guys have visuals? Take it away, Luna.
Alright, so one of the main ideas that we thought was really interesting is color coding the rooms, because it's scientifically proven that the different colors change how you think. So like orange is a get out color, so a quiet color could make a room more quiet. And so that I was going to say something. And then another one was bringing the outside in. So like it was cost effective. Color coding rooms is cost effective. Fountains with water, so it's other things like that. So bringing outside in, the fountains and shrubs or whatever would bring a more wholesome sense to it. And we find peace outdoors was one thing to be found. Taking advantage of the intentional spaces. So like reconfiguring the room or changing what you already have so that it's making space for this quiet area. So so if you already have a corner or an area that people already are kind of drawn to, you can reconfigure the places around it so that it's more it facilitates the quietness in that area. Noise canceling. So Jack brought up an interesting idea where it's like in Google or other areas, it's like you have a program or an interesting machinery that will actually cancel noise completely, and so it's not as expensive as we would think it would be, and it's like you set up speakers on the inside of a room and then microphones on the outside, and it'll cancel the noise out. And then another idea we had, steel case desks, so different things that would be noise cancellation but smaller and more private, because we discovered that lots of things we do to find quiet is going to cars or small enclosed areas, because that's where we find peace and that's where we are more creative. That's about it. So, and food.
All right, we're in.
Yay, Mimi, thank you. I mean, Lulu, thank you.
Thank you. How to see the visual? Okay. All right. So our three central themes to our solutions were empowerment, tools, and stories. So we wanted to empower people to allow or to be able to share how they use the library, but then also empower people to understand how others use the library. We wanted to provide them with tools to do that, and then create stories of how that use kind of plays out for different folks. So we created your visual library, #MyPumaLibrary, where you can walk into the library and there are, imagine these as fluorescent colored like posters with black icons that are very clear. These are headphones, if you didn't know. This is a book. These are people, working collaboratively around a table. Here's a computer. Here's, I was planning on using the library like this, but you don't have my icon. And based on that, there's a question that's posed: what will make things possible for you today? So they can go ahead and follow the icons, very similar to your color coding, to take them to different parts of the library, and where they'll find the places where they can, listen to music, but maybe also work in other ways that are conducive to those uses. But then, if you really need your quiet space and your time with your book or your contemplative time, that can happen. So the challenge with this whole plan is that some libraries don't allow for a master map, right? You walk this way 2 steps and you walk this way 2 steps, and there's mixed use going on. And so to alleviate this problem, we added in a timeline. So based on maybe your map isn't necessarily to space, but rather into time. And so throughout the day, you can have headphones on at this time. You can have collaborative third place time during this time. So your visual library.
Yeah.
Archer?
Okay. Well, we had the noise canceling headphones as well that allow you to choose your sound theme. Issue those.
And we were focusing also not just on completely canceling noise, but having the option of maybe having white noise in the background or having a favorite song playing. So different options, not just complete noise canceling.
Theme-driven design of spaces, retrofitting or future fitting these areas. One of our was a decibel sensor. So we're using high-tech solutions. You explain it.
High-tech solution.
I wish he was in our IT department. Okay, go ahead.
So probably hook up like a Raspberry Pi to a decibel sensor, map it out to each area of the library to the lighting, so that if the decibels get too high, then the lighting dims.
I love that. And the visual cues. So that would basically provide a very non-aversive visual cue for people to lower their decibel. And what we talked about was in movie theaters or in any sort of show, any convention that you go to, it's a nice little cue and you automatically quiet down when you see the dim. So it would be a very non-aversive way of leveling noise to whatever spectrum of, whatever decibel of the noise spectrum that we have on whatever floor or designated area.
They also just talked about the Wi-Fi opportunity with authentication. You sort of agree to certain rules of the space or could be guided to other areas similar to yours that might be more conducive to what you're doing at the library today. And that kind of gets at one of our solutions, a spectrum of quieting sounds and options for spaces in libraries. Did I capture all of it?
That was exactly 2 minutes.
Okay.
Right. Last but not least, outside, Ruth.
So we had very similar kind of ideas. The big idea was water features, but we didn't go with that. One of the things that we focused on was kind of sectional spaces, for lack of a better term, but the kinds of things that you're talking about where you have different environmental cues that allow you to understand how to behave in that space. So like at a coffee shop, you know that you're not going to bring your screaming baby in and stay there, but you expect that there's noise as there's stuff going on, but you can also focus. So when we zoomed in, we said this would cost money, and it would like also there'd be a need for different types of staff and staffing, how people used workflow, because we talked about how libraries are set up for workflow right now, but not for necessarily patron usage. And so that would really change how libraries look at their efficiency of their staff. We said that the segregated areas would provide different expectations, and the physical setup would create those expectations that would benefit more users' needs, because you could create different types of areas, like all of you talked about, that would hopefully, and one of our kind of big zoom outs was bring more people to the library to meet the library's mission. So if the grandmother who's not comfortable at the coffee shop also has a space, that the teenager who's comfortable at the coffee shop, that they're interacting, and that you're opening networks by creating those spaces. And so I think it kind of like is all of the things that you guys have talked about, but also kind of going towards how do you get more people into the library, because more people are comfortable using the library in a way that allows them space for contemplative, reflective time, as well as the kind of learning that needs to happen in communities. And we also talked about how libraries have become the community centers that maybe used to exist, and that's why this is a really important conversation. So, it was great conversations. It's really great.
Can I pose one question that immediately came to mind, which is simply that can you have the sound of the water features without the water features?
Yeah, but we wanted water features. Larry told us about his library. He grew up that had a fountain right in the middle of it, which was kind of cool.
Well, and there's libraries in the Midwest that have fireplaces. That's kind of the same. Provides the same, right?
The Seed Library could do some vertical gardening.
We had, I went to Montana State University for my undergraduate degree, and I was explaining to my group that on the 4th floor that was known to be the quiet floor, and it had a fountain in the middle, and so it was just like, it was so quiet, and you just hear the water trickling in the background, and it was really, really nice. Yeah.
Water seems to quiet you down.
Yeah.
It's just calm.
Especially in Arizona.
Yeah.
You're not very often.
Well, I think it was really interesting being
That
able
would be
to
really cool.
being able to like rotate and hear bits and pieces of everyone's conversations. And Amy shared that what was cool about some of the ideas coming out of their team and what I heard around others is these are all things that some of these things could be implemented tomorrow. But you know, these aren't. Jen's like,
Depending on procurement.
maybe not tomorrow. But things that, yeah. Things like the
There you go.
cleaning the hygiene. We did not consider hygiene. So clearly, this is initial idea generation, right? There's still a process of testing to see if will people actually appreciate and will their behavior reflect what we assume in some of these ideas. But there are absolutely things that I think the library can continue to test and grow on these interesting perspectives. So, nice. Other questions?
Thank you all.
Very much for being here today and sharing your ideas, for giving these to the library, and hopefully this process was useful for you and you can use it in the future.
I think what's really exciting is not only with our libraries now, but we're probably in the next couple of years building 2 new libraries, and so all of the information that we gather from you will be helpful and informative in planning our new libraries, so we wouldn't have to worry about that. So,
I loved hearing outside of the box ideas